The early months of a year are usually pretty slow as far as new releases goes. All the big stuff hits right before the holidays, right? Nobody's out shopping for gifts in January, so why would they release a new game? Over the last couple years, January has provided me with some of my top Game of the Year candidates. This is because I don't play new games. I buy old games when they're on discounts during the holiday sales, and then I play them in the early parts of the year. Last year it was Monster Sanctuary, and this year I actually found another Metroidvania game that I completely fell in love with, playing through it in a matter of days. Ender Lilies' Quietus of the Nights is a fun, challenging Metroidvania experience that is absolutely worth your time. And you know what else is worth your time? Smashing that like button, subscribing to the channel. I mean, it takes literally 3 seconds. You have no excuse. Just do it. When Ender Lilies first popped up on a Steam discovery queue or a Reddit thread or wherever I first saw it, I was initially turned off by it. It was another dark universe kind of Metroidvania game that's challenging and has Souls-like mechanics. And this one also had kind of like, I don't know, sort of anime art style. Wasn't really interested. Over time, I'd continue to see these sale threads for the game, and people kept praising it, and so I finally cracked and gave it a shot. I figured too many people were saying good things about the game for me not to at least try it. In the game, you play as Lily, who is a white priestess who is able to cleanse beings of the corruption that has befallen the world. Lily's just a small little girl. She's not going to be fighting monsters. But luckily she can, channel, wield these spirits who fight for her. You start off with this knight that is a basic sword guy, and he lets you attack people with a sword. As you defeat bosses and mini-bosses scattered throughout the world, you unlock and can equip their attacks as well. Unlike the starting sword, nearly all of these come with a limited number of uses that you, of course, recharge at rest spots throughout the world, but you're allowed to equip 2 sets of 3 spirits that you can switch between on the fly. I thought this was a cool mechanic. It allows you to experiment with a bunch of different spirits that you unlock, and there is a solid number. As you go to different areas, experience different enemies, especially bosses, you will constantly find yourself kind of adapting your loadouts to sort of fit the situation that you're in. I thought it was a really cool addition, and I liked that the game hid these abilities behind specific bosses and mini-bosses, because this actually gives additional value to exploration. That's always kind of my one gripe with these Metroidvania games, is that, yeah, they make this world and they want you to go back and explore it. You know, you're normally just finding these like collectibles or whatever. That's never really done it for me. But here you actually have a real purpose to your exploration. It lets you find and unlock new abilities. So it really did encourage that exploration of the map. The map itself is relatively well designed. Each of the different areas felt unique enough, but still adhered to the overall game's world design. It was hit or miss, I thought, as far as how detailed an area was, how appealing an area was. Some were definitely better than others, but I never felt that any of them got boring to explore. To me, though, the highlight on the presentation standpoint is the game's music. The soundtrack felt very similar to the Nier games, which for me is a huge positive. Nier Autonomous soundtrack is one of my all-time favorites, so I really enjoyed playing this game. This is really a sound-on kind of game. You want to be able to play and hear the soundtrack as you're going through it. And on the gameplay side, while it does incorporate a number of Souls-like aspects, I don't know that I would go that far in categorizing the game. There's no penalty for death. You don't have to go recollect whatever experience you gained from where you died. Instead, as you kill enemies, you gain experience and passively level up. Now, I think that's actually a good thing for this game. I think it was well balanced. It never felt like the enemies were outputting too much damage or that I was too far behind in my own damage as I went through the game. The last area or two, maybe the enemies are a little stronger, but it's the last area or two that kind of felt acceptable, I guess. And the nice thing about how this game is designed is just give it a few tries, because you will be leveling up as you go, and eventually you will be on the correct level with these enemies, and it never felt like there was much grinding or anything that needed to be done. I thought the difficulty curve was really well done. As you explore, you'll also collect these blight fragments that you can use to level up the various spirits that you have. This is a good idea, again tying it more to exploration, but I didn't feel like they really gave you access to enough over the normal course of the game, and it felt like you really had to pick kind of the 6 that you wanted to be your main 6, which was kind of a bummer, because in the early parts of the game, when they're really all at the same, that first starting level, it was fun, really mixing and matching, and that did kind of peter out as the game goes on. You do sort of lock into the loadout you want to use, with some minor switches here and there. I don't think that's a huge deal, because I think that's kind of normal anyway. You experiment for a bit and then find what you like, and unless you get some new awesome ability or skill, you're not really going to mix up your build. So I don't think it's really a negative, but it's just something to make note of. I thought most of the bosses were pretty well designed and unique from one another. Towards the end of the game, of course, it does feel like you just have to learn their attacks and timings, but that doesn't stop them from being a challenge, because you have to know, of course, when to jump, when to dodge, when to go in to get some damage on them. And they move pretty quick, so you don't really have a lot of time. You have to be really tight with what you're doing and focused. I thought they were all a good challenge. I never felt frustrated when it took me a few attempts to take down a boss. It always felt like my mistake versus the game being unfair. If you are one to get frustrated, the game is very forgiving as far as where the rest spots are. You essentially have one right outside of every boss fight, so you don't have to trek back across the whole map to go fight a boss again between attempts. And I think that's huge. I know some people, this is a big point of contention, and even the Souls games, some do it differently than others. Personally, I like this. I think this game was more designed for the actual combat versus something like Demon Souls, which really was designed to be a more endurance test. How much health can you have when you get to the boss? So I think it works well in this game. And again, it's not going for that full punishing, crippling difficulty Dark Souls experience already. So I think it matches the approach and the goals of this game a lot more. I really enjoyed the game's lore as well. Usually I am not one to read the lore that you pick up as you play a game. Sometimes, you read one or two, but it just gets old so fast. However, in this game, I really found myself invested in all of the different characters that you're reading about, the story of the Blight, and how it affected the world. And again, the lore being so good really made exploring and filling out the whole map that much more appealing to me. When all the collectibles are things you actually want to collect, you want to explore the game, and I found myself doing that. This genre of game wants you to explore the map multiple times to keep coming back to previous areas, and I happily did, playing Ender Lilies. Overall, Ender Lilies is a wonderful game. It's engaging and addicting with a world that you want to explore, combat that is fulfilling, and enough build diversity thanks to the various spirits for everyone to find a style that they like. I wouldn't say it's anything new or revolutionary, but it is an extremely solid, refined, and worthwhile entry into what could be considered a very stacked genre. For a final rating, I will give the presentation a 4 out of 5, the story a 3.5 out of 5, the gameplay a 4.5 out of 5, and a final rating of a 4.25 out of 5. And for value, I would say it's worth it. I think this is worth picking up if you're into Metroidvania games. It took me about 12 hours or so to play through, exploring the whole map, getting all the collectibles. If that feels a little short, you can wait for a sale, but I think it was worth it. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. What's your favorite Metroidvania game? And is it Ender Lilies? I'm interested to find out. What game do you want me to talk about next? and I'll see you all with the next video.